Greetings everyone, welcome to class. Today we shall be looking at the particulate nature of matter. The particulate nature of matter. So basically we are trying to look at the theory that supports the existence of the various particles that we have in an atom. And already we know that matter is made up of atoms. So in the previous lesson we were able to look at the different subatomic particles such as proton, neutron and electron, and their various charges and their locations in the nucleus and shells of an atom. So today we are going to look at Dalton's atomic theory. This is one theory that supports the existence of the existence of atom. So I've already listed them on the board. Now, Dalton is a scientist that propounded theories in 1808, and these are the summary of the theories. So he postulated that matter is made up of atoms, which are tiny and indivisible. So like I've written it on the board, matter is made up of tiny indivisible particles called atoms. Then the second one there is that atoms are indestructible. So take note of the words indivisible particles called atom. Then the second one, atoms are indestructible. The third one there is that atoms of the same elements are all identical and have the same mass or weight. Atoms of the same elements are all identical and they have the same mass. So the reason why I'm underlining these words is because over the years there have been modifications to this theory. So in a short bit we shall look at the modifications of Dalton's atomic theory. Then the fourth one there is that when different atoms combine in chemical reaction, they do so in simple whole number ratio. And when they combine like that, they usually form compound atoms, and that compound atom is called molecules. They are called molecules. Remember that a molecule consists of two or more atoms of the same elements. Alright, so quickly let us look at the modifications, because over the years scientists have come to realize that atoms are actually divisible. Okay, they are actually divisible in the sense that we now have subatomic particles. From the discoveries we were able to find out that a single atom contains neutron, electron and proton. So, and that have disqualified this first theory that states that matter is made up of tiny indivisible particles called atoms. So the word indivisible there is no longer in vogue, or it is no longer acceptable, because from recent discovery we found out that atom can actually be divided into several particles. So to modify it, we have two modifications. The first theory and the third one have been modified as these are the modifications. Like I said earlier, the theory number one has been modified thus that matter is made up of tiny particles called atoms. So you no longer need to add the word indivisible. So instead you can write that matter is made up of tiny divisible particles called atoms. So remove the word indivisible. It's no longer needed because, like I said, we've found out that atom contains other subatomic particles. Then the second one there, the theory number 3 have been modified thus. Instead of saying that atoms of the same element are all identical and they have the same mass, the existence of isotopy. Remember, isotopy is a phenomenon where atoms of the same elements have the same atomic number but different masses. And in the previous lesson, I've taken time to explain the reason behind that. The reason is because the nucleus, or the number of the neutron in the nucleus, added to the masses of the various isotopes of that element. So for elements like oxygen, we have oxygen 16, we have oxygen 17, and even oxygen 18. So these are the masses. So the atomic number is the same. The atomic number still remains 8, but the masses vary because of the existence of differences in the neutron number in each of the atoms. So because of that, we can now state this third theory as that atoms of the same element are not identical. They are not identical and they have different masses. They are not identical and they have different masses. Alright, so having said that, let us look at some evidences to convince us of the existence of particles. Remember, the topic says particulate nature of matter, and we know that matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. So why is it possible for us to believe the discoveries of scientists telling us that we have atoms, we have ions, we have molecules, we even have proton, neutron, and the likes, since atom is the smallest particle, meaning we cannot even see it with our naked eyes. So, but there are certain occurrences or certain experiences that we see in our everyday life that actually back up these things, although we cannot see it with our naked eyes, but we know that they exist. Okay, so we are going to be looking at some of them. Okay, take for example, if you take a bottle of perfume and you spread it in one corner of a room, and then you run to the other, or somebody is at the other corner of the room, they are a different corner altogether. With time, with a short limit of time, you will discover that the smell of that perfume will get to the other, it will fill the entire room. So the reason behind it is because the tiny particles of the perfume or the matter perfume can travel, although we can't see it, but the effect that they have in the whole room, or the effect that the air around us in the environment carries it around, shows us that the particles of that perfume is in existence. Okay, it explains to us that although we can't see it, but because we can feel it or experience it, we now know that matter essentially contains tiny, non-visible or invisible particles. All right, then the next one there that can actually convince us that particular nature of matter is real is because if you take a cube of sugar or a pinch of salt and add it to a cup of water, and then if you taste the water, you will discover that the water will now have sweet taste or salt taste. Okay, but looking at the glass of water, you cannot differentiate. Assuming you are not there, you can't tell whether there is something added to it or not, because it has the same color. Okay, it's just in one phase. But if you go ahead to heat up, pour that mixture or the solution now into an iron or a metallic pot or a metallic container and start heating it on a flame, with time all the water will get vaporized, and then you'll be left with a white residue. And then when you taste that white residue, depending on which of the solute to use, if you use salt, you will have a white crystalline solute or residue that that will taste salty, confirming to you that the salt, that pinch of salt we collected contains particles, tiny particles. The same way, if it was sugar that you used, the white residue that will be left will taste sugary. Okay, so all of these are the various natural phenomena that confirm to us that particles of matter actually exist. Okay, particles of matter actually exist. So if scientists come up and tell you that matter is made up of tiny particles, you have to believe them, because you can actually practicalize it. You can experience it in your day-to-day life. All right, having said that, we'll call it a day here, but before that, we'll just have a quick summary of the topic today, particular nature of matter. So we've said that the scientist that discovered the theory that supports the existence of particles of matter is called Dalton, and that is why we have Dalton's atomic theory. So the first one there states that matter is made up of tiny indivisible particles called atoms. Then the second one there is that atoms are indestructible. You can't destroy them, okay, but you can change them from one form to another. If you remember our lesson, the previous lesson, where we discussed change of state. So matter don't get destroyed, but they can be transformed or changed from one state into another state, or from one form into another. Then atoms of the same element are all identical and they have the same mass. Atoms of the same element are identical and they have the same mass. All right, remember that these two, the first one and the second one, have been modified due to discoveries by scientists. So instead of stating this as matter is made up of tiny indivisible particles, it is now stated as matter is made up of tiny particles. But if you insist on adding this word, you will now use divisible. The evidence is because matter contains proton, neutron, and electron. So you see, we can actually divide matter, or an atom. Okay, so atom is divisible. Because of that, we can now say that matter is made up of tiny particles called atom. Then to modify this one, you can now say that atoms of the same element are not identical and they don't have the same mass. Okay, so the phenomenon that supports this modification is isotopy. Remember that isotopy is a phenomenon where atoms of the same element have different masses, but they have the same atomic number. So that will be all for today. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.